Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the next episode of the Leena AI podcast. Today, with us, we have Tammy Klotz, the current CISO, Chief Information Security Officer at Trinseo, and the author of the book Leading with Empathy and Grace. Thank you so much, Tammy, for taking out time and doing this with us.
I'm happy to be here, Adit. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Amazing. A lot of our listeners would already know about Trinseo, but I'd love for you to introduce the company and tell us more about your roles and responsibilities as a CISO as well.
Sure, absolutely. So actually, just yesterday, which was the 16th of October, I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary with Trinseo as the Chief Information Security Officer there. Trinseo is a specialty material solution providers that partners with other companies to bring ideas to life in an innovative, imaginative, smart, and sustainably focused manner. So we are previously a spinoff from Dow Chemical, but have been running on our own for several years now and are looking forward to continued growth in our businesses across the globe. As the Chief Information Security Officer at Trinseo, I am responsible for our cybersecurity program there, and that includes all elements of cybersecurity, including protecting our manufacturing floor, protecting our IT systems and applications, protecting all of Trinseo's data, and then a lot of activity around things like governance, risk, and compliance. We've got a pretty broad spectrum of things that me and my team are responsible for to keep the organization safe.
Amazing, Tammy. I think it's going to be an amazing discussion because, we all know Trinseo is a listed company. So you have to do the kind of checks and balances that you have to take care of are, of course, going to be at the highest level. And when you mix Gen AI with those high level of checks and balances, amazing things can happen and amazing things
and not so amazing things.
Exactly. And amazing things can go wrong as well, right? So my first question is I want to talk about the impact of generative AI in transforming core business operation in your industry specifically. Let's start there and we'll get into the other elements of how do you think about security. But first, let's talk about the impact you think generative AI is going to have on your industry.
Yeah, I think we need to think about Gen AI as we introduce it into business operations with regards to things like increased productivity, speed to market, efficiency gains, productivity gains, etc. There's a lot of things that can be accelerated with the use of Gen AI techniques and technologies. But as you mentioned, with that innovation, there is the need to balance the risk that is associated with all of that. So making sure that my organization, along with our technology organization, are working hand in hand. Because what I really try not to do is I don't want to inhibit productivity or advancement with technology when it comes to security, but really figure out how we can bring the two together to keep an organization secure and advance them from a technology perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're talking about is bringing that balance, right?
Yes.
Like the risk and the ROI. Like how do
Reward.
how do you bring that balance into every single decision you make? So let me dive deep into. I'm sure there's so much excitement at the board level and the C-suite, just like at your level, about generative AI, right? So how are you even assessing the risk at this point? Because some of our existing models of understanding risk in the enterprise and technology risk in the enterprise have now completely got lopsided because of AI, right? Like there are things which we have never even thought of before that are now possible. And you have engineers who are writing code using AI, right? And what if there's malware or there are gaps that get introduced? Just an example, right? But how are you as a CISO even thinking about evaluating and protecting your organization against such risks, known and unknown, that come upon us due to generative AI?
So I think the most important place to start is in raising awareness within the organization, focused on the people, the human element of that, because everything that is new and sexy tends to get a lot of attention. So getting in front of the organization to talk to them about, what are some of the not so great things that can actually happen, and making them aware of that. You will not find me being the CISO who's going out and blocking things like ChatGPT, because the reality of it is if you tell somebody no, they're going to figure out how to do it anyway, right? So rather than fight that, let's get behind it and talk about how we do it in a way that is beneficial to the organization, but also protects the organization. So we've done some awareness sessions. We've done policy development around what is appropriate use and what is inappropriate use of AI technologies, and reinforcing with individuals, what are the things that they need to think about when exploring opportunity to use AI. And we're actually partnering with our R&D organization in the formation of a task force looking for business use cases, so that we can, start small and expand, rather than kind of unleashing it to the entire organization. So, we're in a little bit of a crawl, walk, run mode, which I think is what most companies, are hoping to accomplish. But depending upon, the train is out of the station, as the people say, right? It's figuring out how to keep it on the tracks now, right? And so, the more we can communicate, talk about real live benefit that can come from the technologies. It's just, with every good thing that gets introduced, there is always a bad component to it, right? So emphasizing and educating folks about what are the things that they need to look out for. I believe that training and awareness piece is huge and foundational before we even ever start talking about the technology, right? It's here to stay. It's just like the internet. When the internet started, right? It is going to change the way that we work. And we have to figure out how we're going to adapt and adjust using those new technologies in our business environments.
Oh, love it, Tammy. I love the way you've embraced this and said, okay, let instead of blocking people, let's get ahead of it and train them on how it can harm them, right? Or the organization. So, I love the positive attitude towards getting this done. So when I talk to business leaders in these podcasts and generally, while doing day-to-day business, what I realize is there are two types of business use cases where people are thinking of implementing Gen AI. The first is operational efficiencies. Okay, can we get our G&A cost down? I'm just example, right? The second is what you mentioned, how can we get our productivity on the research and development high? Can we get products out faster? Can we sell more? Can we sell fast, right? So there are two buckets, efficiency gains or G&A cost reduction, and the second one is on the speed to market R&D, real core business use cases, right? So tell me what are you thinking right now? What given that every leader is coming to you and saying, hey, you know what, Tammy, I want to use AI for this, I want to use AI for that. How are you prioritizing? And you're saying, okay, of course you have to balance the risk and you have to prioritize amongst 15 projects that people want to do, right? So how is that prioritization happening, and how are you viewing risk as a critical part of making that prioritization decision?
Yeah, so I think the important thing is really understanding what your corporate governance structure actually looks like, so that you can have a process that is in place that will assist from a prioritization perspective, talking about what funding is available, what is the business benefit, how quickly is that business benefit going to be realized in an organization. And I don't want to be the one sitting at the table making that decision, right? Because my job is to be a risk advisor about talking about what do you want to do. If we do this, this is the potential of the risk that we're taking on, and ultimately feeding that back to the business requester to say, is the organization willing to take on that risk, right? And then figuring out who are the right people to be able to answer that question, right? Because if you go into it, there's going to be a variety of people that think it's their decision to make when it truly is not, right? So having that clear governance structure in place, and not only for AI, new endeavors or new initiatives, it's how do you do that across the stack of all of the different things that the company is actually wanting to do. So I think, the stronger the governance is within an organization, if it's solid and in place and repeatable and functional, AI just falls in, kind of right behind that. If it's not there, then you really need to think about how do you put that structure in place, because there's only so many things that can fit through the funnel, and then how you determine what actually goes through the funnel is always a challenge, right? How much money is there? How many resources are available to work on this? And who gets to say whose initiative is more important than the other?
Oh, I think that makes so much sense, Tammy. Like looking back, to my other conversations with CIOs, CISOs, CHROs, CFOs, and CEOs, I've realized that I think what you said, like the business use case and the business ROI, like that's number one, and then you need to make sure that the risk that you're taking on as an organization to deliver that business ROI is not like higher than the ROI itself, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think our for what we do is we help on the other side. Like we help reduce tickets as an organization ourselves, right? So what I've had from a CISO perspective, from a Chief Information Security Officer perspective in conversations, right? We say, hey, we go in and we reduce IT, HR, finance tickets by 70%, right? So the conversation that I've always had from a risk perspective is, okay, you know what? If you're not gonna, like in HR, like it's fine in IT majorly because what are you going to generate? Like just like, okay, this is how you repair your laptop, this is how you get access to new software, and we do integrations can't get like changed because of AI, so we kind of lock that up. But these are the conversations that CISOs have. Hey, will your AI actually go and write something back into my system? Like, will your AI decide what to write back, right? Will your AI change something in my system, right? And will your AI generate some content in benefits, for example, which is very sensitive, right? No one wants to lose, right? So I think, in our conversations with CISOs, and just as you said, right, like that ROI and that funding needs to be there. But from a CISO perspective, you need to ensure that whether they're building it internally, doing an experiment, it should never outweigh the risk should never outweigh the ROI that's coming in. So beautifully said, Tammy. So I want to then move into one specific area which is very interesting. You as a business buyer, Tammy,
Yes.
you buy a lot of software for InfoSec and for DPA and stuff, right? Data protection and all of these things, right? How are you using generative AI in your organization, right?
Yeah.
What are your plans?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it was one of the places I was hoping we were going to go with this, right? Because there's so many different use cases just in the security space that says, how do we bring AI into our operational excellence type of model, right? And a lot of the solutions that we're buying today to help protect our organizations are building more and more AI capabilities into their service offerings, right? So whether that's email security, whether it's network security, if I look at things like from a managed detection and response perspective on our endpoint. So what are we going to allow, in some cases, AI to fix automatically when detected in the environment versus what are the things that are really going to require intervention to take action, right? I was just in a seminar yesterday where we were talking about Microsoft Copilot and the governance around that, and really, what are the use cases in which that we want, that bot or that automation to really take action in our behalf? And there was a whole conversation that we went into with regards to, is security operations and now data operations, do they need to be handled separately, right? Because a lot of case when you're thinking about data protection, there is a human interpretation that needs to be done to understand what data is being exposed, who has access to that data. Well, if there's an alert that somebody just, downloaded 3,000 files, maybe there was a good business reason for that, but probably not. But do we want to take action without any intervention? So I think, the differentiation between where it is, more likely to be able to apply those automation, those AI techniques, and those that are going to always require. So I will say that from my personal perspective, we're not necessarily doing anything in-house. We're definitely using our service providers, but as they're bringing AI and embedding them into their solutions, it's important for us to understand how that's actually working. So even down to like contractual language with regards to when a supplier is now embedding AI techniques, it's important for us to understand what they're doing with that data, right? And how are they using any of the data that they're collecting from, supporting us, servicing us using their product? Are they taking that out to their LLMs? And do I have to be concerned about what is the type of information that they're using now? Because that's been the big, I'll call it lecture to the overall organization, right? Is be very careful about what you're allowing to go into these LLMs, right? So that you're not compromising, trade secrets, proprietary information, those types of things. So I think, there's a place. Figuring out what that exact place is going to be dependent upon the company culture, the industry, and what the risk appetite is of those companies. So it's definitely not going to be a one size fits all. It's really going to have to be a much more thoughtful conversation and decisioning around those different elements.
So, no, great answer, Tammy. Like, let's say one of your partners, like, brings in the actioning part of so it's not just about the alert, right? Like someone downloaded 3,000 files, maybe they have a good business use case or not. Like, what do that particular partner, should do or has to do to allow you to say, okay, I don't need a human intervention? Like, what would that be? What would that KPI or like, what's that parameter that you're looking for that, hey, if they can guarantee that, this is what it is, then I'll be happy with this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if I think about different examples in the space, right? So, the things that come in on a routine basis, somebody's trying to visit a link that is malicious or has some inappropriate content on it, right? Something that, is inappropriate, I believe is much easier to act on, right? Where there's a direct violation of something that would show up in like our code of conduct, and, it's just not allowed, right? It's a very black and white situation. And when it's black and white, it's very easy to take action because the rules are clear and they're defined. However, there's going to be other situations, like a perfect example would be, okay, so somebody has uploaded something to Dropbox. So we could say, no, sorry, can't do that as soon as they attempt to make the connection. However, there are going to be legitimate use cases where that needs to happen, whether it's because of a partnership that we have with another company, and that's how we've agreed contractually to exchange information with them. So, there does need to be some, human questioning that has to go on. And can you build that into some of the models? Maybe. Right? To ask those questions, and depending upon how the questions get answered. But I think our biggest challenge is in this space, especially for publicly traded companies, is really going to be how do you pass the audit test when you are using AI as part of your business processes and your control structures, right? Because we need to be able to demonstrate evidence of how a decision was made, how a report was created. And if there is an AI model that is doing that, how do we get audit to understand and get comfortable and gain assurance that it is being done efficiently and effectively from a control perspective? I think that is going to be one of our bigger challenges as this continues to morph organizations and how they do their business.
I think, yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, like, thinking backwards, like, more we are working in, of course, we're a Gen AI company, so we work with 500 plus customers globally, and I think the focus that we're getting from our customers on audit trails, on, like, you give an answer to Tammy about how to, create a new email group, right? Or you help Tammy create a new email group, or add, Tom to this security email group without, like, doing the integration happen automatically, right? Like, show me how, like, what happened, like, what went behind it, right?
Yeah.
So, guardrail it, like, you know what, like, okay, no, if Tammy says add Tom to the information security email group, take a double confirmation from Tammy on chat. Hey Tammy, I've understood that you want to add Tom to this email. Do you want me to go ahead and do that in Microsoft AD? Yes, Tammy says yes, right? And that's when Tom gets added, else it does not go, right? So, like, double confirmation, and those confirmations can actually go back into the audit or log. So, like, the usage of our audit logs, Tammy, has gone off the roof. So I completely get what you're saying. But I think as soon as decisions start being made by AI systems, and especially in core business operations, like, still my example was still in, like, G&A efficiency, right? But as soon as you start making more of those in your core business operations, and maybe even in HR and in, like, financial decisions, I think you have your task cut out, Tammy, to secure and also make sure that the audit teams have all that they need to be comfortable with this.
Yeah, and I think the other challenge that comes up, right, is all around, who organizationally owns artificial intelligence, right? I'm guessing you all have been part of that questioning from some of your customers, right? Because, is it a security thing, but it's a technology thing? So, or is it, something that is, owned by legal, right? It's the typical, parties that come to the table and be questioned. But it's going to be another one of those things, like, I think, like privacy to some extent, right? Because privacy usually has a security element, an HR element, and a legal element, right? So, but ultimately, somebody within the organization needs to own it from an accountability perspective. The rest can be responsible to make sure, policies are adhered to and controls are in place. But from an oath, that it goes back to that governance, right? And where does that governance sit within the organization?
Absolutely. No, exciting conversation, Tammy. I think, what I'd love to, I think you mentioned this earlier when we started off the conversation, but are there, like, already experiments that are happening at Trinseo which have that are going to have a direct impact on Trinseo's business, like, improving, like, research and development time? Are these things in pipeline, or are you already experimenting? And like, what, if you can give a few examples?
Yeah, I won't talk to specific examples at this point, but what I can tell you is that we have a task force that has been formed. It is being co-led by IT and R&D. And they're trying to figure out what those appropriate use cases are. I don't want to kind of spill the beans there, but because that's kind of like a little bit of crown jewel type stuff. So I won't go into a lot of detail about that, but that they are exploring, what the realm of possibility is. And it's great that the two organizations have come together and are working together. I think, those are the things that I, quote, know about, right? I'm sure, like many of my other colleagues, there's stuff happening that we don't know about, right? And that's the kind of the fear factor of what we don't know and what folks are using, or what contracts are, business folks engaged in, where their parties are definitely bringing, some AI capabilities. And from a supply chain perspective, that can get, pretty dicey when we're dependent and our customers are dependent upon us from a supply chain perspective, and vice versa, right? So, there's added risk when it comes to those types of situations.
Love it, Tammy. I think your task is cut out for the next few years as we continue to grow, and
not to mention everything else that is not going to go away as a result of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Jenny, I think the overall number of attacks on any organization, or like the world in general, even like personal or organization, they've just gone up by 10x post like AI and Gen AI, right? Like it's crazy. Like China, God knows where. Like there's so many Russia. There's so many attacks that constantly keep happening on organizations, and we have to just keep investing and keep making sure that we are secure, especially in the Gen AI era, because you're using it to defend yourself, somebody else is using to harm you. So I think exciting times, and I'll switch gears, and before coming to this podcast, I was reading up and looking at your book, Leading with Empathy and Grace, which focuses on creating people-centric workplaces, right? So how do you see Gen AI fitting into this vision of fostering better human connections and building stronger work cultures, as you've highlighted in your book?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a great answer to that, right? Because part of the human-centered piece of it is connecting with human beings, right? And replacing that with some sort of technology to make it happen. I mean, I think some of the things that we have done over the course of the last 4 years since COVID have definitely allowed technology to bring people closer together when they weren't able to actually get into a physical location. So, who knows what AI will bring next to transactions like you and I are having right now.
Yep.
I think that the challenge will be, and in October, we've been doing some cybersecurity awareness activities because it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but talking about things like deep fakes, some of the more notable, things that have happened with folks getting, tricked by a, deep fake CEO has requested money to be transferred. It's just kind of the next level now, because it used to be a text message or a phishing email or something like that, but now somebody not only poses and impersonates them, but now they look like them and they sound like them too. Yep. Right? So how do I now validate those types of things in my environment? And that's why I think the awareness component. So back to your question about how does Gen AI help with the human interaction? I don't know, right? I'm anxious to find out, eager to find out what could happen, but it also scares the heck out of me, right? Because there's something to be said for connecting at an intellectual level on a variety of topics with individuals that you're working with, right? So that can be on a professional level, that can be on a personal level. Maybe there'll be something if, two people, share a hobby. I have one gentleman on my team right now who's a very, very talented artist, and I have somebody else on my team who's a Marvel, superhero, fanatic, right? So maybe there'll be something that allows them to, come together over those commonalities that they share. Maybe not so much from a professional perspective, but more in that personal, that you build on that. Or, depending upon the age of the kids, what are the kids all doing at that same time? How are you learning? How are you training? Is there something that we can do to do some sort of mutually beneficial training experience that you really can feed and develop off of one another as part of what your team is doing, what's happening in the industry? So I think that, I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, to say how that would happen, but I get a little bit nervous, because I don't want to take the human interaction out of a higher performing team. I think that's fundamental, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, and you touch upon some great points. Like I think you mentioned like it can help find commonalities and common ground for you to partner new employees coming on board. So like how do you get them to mix down, get trained really fast, and then of course get to meet the team around really fast, and then have relationships going in the organization, right? I think this is very close. So I've been having these exact conversations for the last 7 years. Like Leena, I was born like 8 years ago, right? So even when without this is before Gen AI, right? So the board models were a big thing and all of that, right? So like CIO, CHRs would ask the same question, like, you know what, like, so we are saying, hey, we reduce IT tickets, HR tickets, finance tickets, right? So what are these people like? I don't want my job to go, or my people's jobs to go,
right.
So that's our answer for last 8 years, and even today, even with Gen AI and everything, has been the same. That hey, you know what, hey, you know what, Tom, no, your team's job is not gonna go, because everything that they do which is like non-value adding, repetitive, think about L0 L1 tickets, right?
Yes.
They'll get away, and then they'll actually go in and work with every single employee. Let's say from an IT, HR, finance perspective, they'll have the time to go and make real connections with Tammy, right? For example. And so if I'm an IT person, if I'm an HR person, I like HR person, people keep getting simple questions from the entire team, right? And they're asking me the same question where they can get it in a particular system or in a policy or somewhere, right? Now AI can take care of all of the simple tickets, right? And I can go and educate myself and work with every single person and say, hey, this is what your leadership development plan looks like, right? This is what you're learning. You want to be a CFO? Let's work on that. Let's build a plan, right?
What's that going to take? What's going to look right?
Yeah. So IT agents who are solving tickets like L0, they can go increase their technology skills and go build things. They can go, build an application that helps business do more business, right? And that's what I've been saying for the last 8 years, and that's exactly how like all technology at the end it pans out, right? And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here as well, Tammy. And it's exactly what you said, right? So it's can we give people more time? Can we give them more connection? Can we bring them together using AI or any other technology which helps with efficiency and productivity? So yeah, I'm more optimistic, Tammy.
I won't say I'm not optimistic. I'm cautious, I guess, is the best word.
You have to be. You have to be. That's the title, right? That's the title. No, I think amazing conversation, Tammy, and I'm taking back a lot of learning nuggets from this conversation. I hope people who are listening in, senior leadership, IT, HR, and organizations, you had a great time listening to the both of us.
For everybody who participated today, I hope you were able to take away some key nuggets from the conversation that Adit and I had, and we'll see what is ahead of us from an AI and Gen AI perspective, and how it will change how we work. I have no doubt about that. It's a little bit of the unknown right now, but just like we did when the internet became a thing, or we moved to outside service providers to deliver services within the technology organizations, we have to figure out how to reinvent ourselves with the new technology, and where do we focus on our development as practitioners in this space, so that we can take advantage of the new technology and continue to do value-added work for our organizations.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for being here and doing this for us. And I'll request if people who are listening this want to reach out, they can hit you up on LinkedIn and send a message.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tammy, and thanks a lot for doing this.
What a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.